In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Challenge to the system. That's how one Trump ally described to CNN the president-elect's cabinet and staff picks.
The Secretary of Defense nominee, Pete Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who, weekend host, this is someone who is known to be a white supremacist.
Tulsi Gabbard, she's considered to be, by most assessments, a Russian asset.
Oh my God, bro!
Trump's latest cabinet nominee is RFK Jr. for, wait for it, the head of Health and Human Services.
Literally a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist.
I doubt it.
You are fake news.
It's not against the law, ho, fuck you.
Very fake news.
Kyle Hitler, baby.
Jeez.
What the is this?
Well, it's not my concern.
Go back to where you come from, okay?
Wow.
All right, America, go to the YouTube right now.
Skag free whoever he is.
Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
Yeah, 5, 4, 3. I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Sunday, November 17th, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. As you may have heard there, I brought back my old Wednesday intro, or an updated version of it. If there's one thing I regret losing, or that I miss from my old Wednesday show on Tenet, it was that awesome intro that my friend Chris Gard down in Australia put together. So he was gracious enough to update that for me so I could use it once again. Thanks to him for that. And of course, Chris Gard's music always linked in the description for you to find. Thanks for patience with a little bit of time away for me this week. Good to see family. Take a minute to be away from politics for sanity's sake, of course. And I'm back on schedule now. Great guest later tonight. At the bottom of the hour, Jon Patton from the Gun Collective will join. We'll talk about, among other things, the prospect of the AK guy, Brandon Herrera, becoming ATF Director under Trump. Is it just memery? Is it real? I got to know. I look forward to talking to him. We'll do that in about a half hour or so. Otherwise, in the news tonight, Donald Trump makes several cabinet picks, of course, and the deranged Democrat reaction is predictably underway. We'll consider the arguments and, of course, how this process is going to work. Democrats, meanwhile, or at least a Democrat, proposes for their party their own shadow cabinet, which sounded ominous until I looked at it and I realized it means nothing, but it's good for show. So right on brand with the Democrat Party. Bob Casey, supposed to be outgoing senator in Pennsylvania, still refuses to concede the Senate race there. This time, of course, questioning the election results, way different, good for democracy. We'll check in on exactly what's happening there. A Seattle lesbian, although I don't know that the term lesbian applies. As we'll get to, there's a trans complication. Lesbian is very loosely used here. But a Seattle lesbian murders her dad with an ice axe on election night. We'll check in with that story. And of course, as always, I have Hoax hate for you to close. I'll catch up with your super chats as well, $10 and up on the Sunday show, because I am a no-good, low-down money grabber, and my sources say our friend Knuckle Hunky Buck will join us once again to read super chats this evening. Speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. And you can do that by super chat, of course. But you can also do it for as little as $1 a month over on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com, or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. Yes, it's a real URL. Try it, I swear. It's even safe for work and everything, mattis.gay. mattis.gay/support, actually, or mattchristiansenmedia.com/support is how you do it. Listener support, of course, is hugely appreciated. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. It keeps the show operational, my entire channel, my entire operation running. There are perks available for certain levels of support as well. Again, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support, linked in the description. And we also have to check in with our feature listener-owned business for the week, and that's our friends at Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing. These are high-quality, handmade, premium hardwood cutting boards, charcuterie boards, serving trays, and more, all of which are great gift options or the perfect piece to class up your kitchen or anywhere else in your home. Last year, Blake at Kineo Mountain made me a cutting board engraved with my channel logo, and it looks amazing. It's been a part of our kitchen ever since. It hasn't aged a bit. And in addition to the quality, that's the best part about Kineo Mountain's products. They are fully customizable, not just in the materials, but in the engravings too. So if you'd like to personalize a gift just like Blake did for me, that can be arranged. Or if you have any other custom hardwood project in mind, no matter how big or how small, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing can make it a reality for you. Just get in touch at kineowood.com. All Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products are made in Colorado from premium domestic hardwood sources. Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing is the absolute highest quality woodworking that will last you forever. Listeners of this show get 10% off all Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products and services using promo code MATT10 at checkout. That's promo code MATT10 for 10% off everything at kineowood.com, KINEOWOOD.com. Find everything you need from our friends at Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing, plus other great offers from the rest of our friendly listener-owned businesses like Hero Soap Company, Western Razor Company, Hope Innovations, and more. That's all at mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals, deals by listeners, for listeners. And hey, speaking of our friends at Hero Soap Company, they just launched the Freedom Box just in time for the holidays, a great gift option for Christmas. The Freedom Box features 4 new exclusive soaps, all inspired by the triumphs of American history. Boston Tea Party is clean, fresh, and calming. Overmountain is woodsy. Frontiers is masculine. And Liberty Cleanse is woodsy, sweet, and musky. Pick up all 4 with the Freedom Box from Hero Soap Company now. Shipping, remember, listeners of this show get 10% off everything from our friends at Hero Soap using promo code MC Listener, mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals for all the information. Hopping into the news, as I talked about last time I was live, a couple big trials are underway. Not just the Daniel Penny subway, the subway chokehold trial in New York City. Now there's the Laken Riley trial in Athens, Georgia. Now, of course, recall last year, Venezuelan illegal immigrant Jose Ibarra, who I didn't know until I was reading about this earlier today. He's alleged or known to have connections to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, your new landlords in Aurora or San Antonio and beyond. Now, Jose Ibarra is accused, of course, of murdering Laken Riley. He's not accused as a formality here. The guy did it. There's a mountain of evidence. He did it. But there's a trial, of course. He's accused of murdering Laken Riley after attacking her as she jogged on the University of Georgia campus. Ibarra was attempting to rape Laken Riley, and she fought back, and he bludgeoned her to death with a rock to the skull. Now, opening statements got underway at the trial on Friday. Prosecutors outlined how the fight between Laken Riley and Jose Ibarra actually lasted for about 18 minutes. So it's not like he just jumped on her and beat her to death very quickly. This was an ongoing fight. For 18 minutes, she was fighting back against this guy until he finally killed her. Prosecution outlined how the case against Ibarra is overwhelming. Prosecutors will introduce forensic video and digital evidence proving Ibarra's guilt.
The evidence will show that Laken fought. She fought for her life, and in that fight, she caused this defendant to leave forensic evidence behind. She also marked her killer for the entire world to see. The evidence in this case will come in basically 3 forms. There'll be forensic evidence, there will be digital evidence, and there will be video evidence. And all 3 forms of those evidence will point to one person, Jose Ibarra.
Now, Ibarra is charged with malice murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and other crimes. He faces up to life in prison if convicted, not the death penalty. Now, Georgia does have the death penalty. Prosecutors opted not to pursue it. I was searching earlier today to find the specific reason why I couldn't. So that's a mystery to me, but I'm sure that's out there somewhere. Of note, Ibarra also opted for a bench trial in this case, meaning the judge will assess his guilt, not a jury. And that, of course, is always an option for a defendant. You can waive your right to a trial by jury. I would assume the reason Ibarra is doing this is because his only hope is legal technicals. He's not aiming for some kind of sympathy from a jury because he's very unlikely to get that. So I assume the defense strategy will be legal technicals that maybe a judge might be sympathetic to. I can't imagine anything other than a guilty plea or a guilty verdict in this case, but we'll see how it goes. Now, unlike the Daniel Penny trial in New York, the subway chokehold case, you can watch this trial. It is live streamed through several different channels and platforms. How long the trial is expected to last, I'm not sure, but it does resume tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, if you thought, I guess I shouldn't have done the I Will Remember You for Tim Walz last week because I thought he was going away, but sometimes you just need to go back to the cookie jar of comedy, I guess. And I'm going to do that. We're not done with Tim Walz. We'll remember him as soon as this week, actually. If you thought he was loony, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I'm not talking about his son, who became a viral sensation at the DNC. I'm talking about his 23-year-old daughter, Hope Walz. Now, after the election, Hope Walz has created a TikTok account. In reaction to her father's loss, she said, Americans don't deserve Kamala Harris, and that the only Americans who showed up the way that they're supposed to were black chicks, and that we all failed the black chicks, actually. And she was so mad that she apparently didn't brush her teeth for several days after the election.
So I've officially reached a point of anger, and I'm not an angry person, so I'm just trying to channel it. This country does not deserve Kamala Harris. That woman should go live her best life wherever she wants, doing whatever she wants, because we don't deserve her at this point. The only people that delivered this election were black women, and we failed them. We've got to do whatever we can to support them and support our people through these next 4 years. So I'm just really grateful that I am who I am and that I'm on the side of love and hope and joy and progress. This morning I woke up and decided I needed to take a shower, and so I finally did that, and I did my skincare for the first time in a couple days, and this is very embarrassing, but I brushed my teeth for the first time since Tuesday night.
I've become friends with school shooters.
So she's a very good person with several school shooter family friends. Once again, the heroes of the working class lecture the working class as not just misinformed, but bad people if they don't vote the way that these elites direct them to, or at least the children of elites. Hope Walz knows all of your issues better than you do because she's a better person than you are. Now, as many have said in response on Twitter, I actually do agree with Hope Walz. America does not deserve Kamala Harris. I know America has made some mistakes. I know that maybe we've had some better days behind us, at least relative to the prior administration or the current outgoing administration. But I don't think anything we've done really makes us deserve Kamala Harris. That would be cruel and unusual punishment. I think America is a more deserving country than that. Now, originally, as far as the toothbrushing, I thought she posted that video this week and she didn't brush her teeth for over a week in protest. That toothbrushing video was posted on November 8th, so it was more like 3 days of no toothbrushing. But man, I've had angry days in my life. I've had frustration in my life. I've had moments of despair. I don't ever remember not brushing my teeth out of rage. That's a strange reaction, but maybe somebody in the field of psychology could explain that one to me. And remember, now I make the school shooters reference. Tim Walz's explanation for his school shooter friend's quote is that he's actually very good friends with David Hogg. So I'm just saying, if you think that Hope Walz is insufferable now, just wait until her dad fixes her up with David Hogg as a Democrat power couple, in which David Hogg, of course, is a power bottom or perhaps the noodle-armed bottom, stand by for that.
That's a big game, man.
Now, in more important news, of course, this week was just a flurry of picks from Trump for his cabinet. And according to the media and Democrat reaction, each one is more Hitlerian and murderous than the last. Each one is going to cause you a more gruesome death than the last and will cause the end of the country in a different, unique way. Perhaps they'll all combine their rings like it's Captain Planet and they'll destroy the world and the country that way. They'll initiate the apocalypse. And I don't know what's more encouraging, the prospect of these administrative agencies actually getting gutted, which seems like it might be a theme here, or Democrats just freaking out as though they expected any of their people to stick around. Now, I don't have delusions. I'm optimistic about this stuff, but I don't have delusional expectations that these people are going to go in and hit the delete key in DC that they should. But you appreciate the change in trajectory, certainly. And what I enjoy the most, I think, is all these people in the Democrat Party who otherwise love big, powerful, centralized, bureaucratic DC government. Now they're saying, no, please, not like that. Don't do the big DC government like that. And maybe someday, optimistically, we can all agree, wouldn't it be better if we just didn't do the big centralized DC government at all? Wouldn't that solve a lot of our problems and disagreements? No, of course not. I'm not going to hold my breath for that. But maybe someday they'll join the rest of us. But of course, RFK Jr. is the most dangerous and the most mockable of all of Trump's pick. Well, maybe not Matt Gaetz, but we'll get to him. But in general, few things piss off Democrats like other Democrats who buck the party, as of course RFK Jr. has. Now, in fairness, I think the Democrat Party bucked him first. He wanted to have an honest contest with Joe Biden. They refused. They pushed him to Trump. I don't think RFK was naturally attracted to Trump per se, if that's not a gay way to put it. But you get what I'm saying. The Democrat Party pushed him there, and now they're mad that he's there. And this week, Trump announced that he's selected RFK Jr. as his pick for Secretary of Health and Human Services. And according to Joy Behar over on The View, well, this is a punchline that is already written.
So Trump's latest cabinet nominee is RFK Jr. for, wait for it, the head of Health and Human Services. He's a longtime vaccine skeptic and conspiracy theorist who has linked antidepressants to school shootings. He wants to get rid of fluoride in the water, cavities, and thinks everybody should drink unpasteurized milk. You get salmonella, and you get salmonella, and you get salmonella.
Now, I don't care what anyone says. Antidepressants and other prescription drugs are absolutely linked to school shootings. You could debate the causal relationship, but the link is absolutely, there's nothing tinfoily about that statement at all. In my own following of these stories, of course, it's somewhat anecdotal. You're selecting from individual cases. I haven't done some comprehensive data study on this. But other than absent fathers, one thing, it's hard to think of things that are more common among school shooters. You should ask Tim Walz, since he's such good friends with them. But a lot of them have this prescription drug or drug prescriptions in common. Adam Lanza at Sandy Hook, Nicholas Cruz at Parkland, Eric Harris at Columbine. The list goes on. Now, I did consult a USA Today fact check to make sure I wasn't misrepresenting. And they say, no way. Actually, we've looked at the studies and it's a minority of school shooters on prescription drugs, at least prior to their school shooting. Okay, I don't know if he's ever said most or all, but even if you want to be technical about that, the measurement of minority depends on how you define school shooter and school shooting. And we know that these people get very creative when they're trying to present the numbers in a particular way. These are the same people who count accidental discharges at police academies as school shootings. These are the same people who count stray rounds from that Glock in Oakland from the gang that happens to hit the school window as a school shooting. So whether the majority or minority of school shooters are linked to these prescription drugs, it's clearly a common element. And I think it would be foolish to ignore any common element. Now, I was looking at fluoride in the water too. Oh man, RFK thinks maybe we shouldn't have fluoride in the water. Oh, what a loony person. You know who else is saying something to that effect, or at least saying, hey, we ought to revisit this? Remember the Saw lady on CNN, Leanna Wen? She looks like Jigsaw from Saw. In 2020 and 2021 and 2022, she was always on CNN telling you, you better get the vaccine or you're going to die a horrible, gruesome death. Well, Leanna Wen this week has an article in the Washington Post, an op-ed, in which she's talking about exactly this. Like, well, hey, the debate over water fluoridation is far from settled. First off, it's not really clear why we do this. It's obvious when we started doing this, it was for the prevention of tooth decay. But now everyone has access to fluoridated toothpaste. You're not really doing much for tooth decay by fluoridating the water. And there's credible peer-reviewed medical research, in fact, published by the National Toxicology Program, itself part of the Department of Health and Human Services way before RFK ever gets there. They concluded with moderate confidence that fluoride in drinking water is linked with lower IQ in kids. So, okay, what's wrong with asking, Joy Behar says you're going to get cavities. Well, what happens if my sons get cavities in their brains instead of in their teeth? I think the toothpaste will take care of it, but what do I do about the cavities in their brains? Joy, it's not me asking. It's your precious Health and Human Services Department asking that question. As far as pasteurized milk, who the hell cares? If RFK likes to drink straight from the udder, what difference does it make? Is he pointing a gun at you and saying, suckle that cow tit right now? Who gives a damn if he thinks people should drink raw milk or not? I don't know. But yeah, it's just the geniuses, the saviors, the supermen and women at HHS who they're the thin line between you and salmonella from a cow udder. Otherwise, you would have died long ago. Or maybe dabbling in unpasteurized milk is the most dangerous thing possible for the country. According to Democrat Congressman Robert Garcia of California, RFK Jr. is the most horrible of all of Trump's horrible picks. He would have preferred Adolf bin Laden or Jar Jar Binks, in fact.
Of all the horrible picks, there probably could not be a worse one for the country and for families than this one. You're talking about a person that is literally a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. This is the person that, by the way, has said that you can't actually prove that the vaccines are actually effective. This is somebody who has said that fluoride in water causes people to turn trans or turn gay. This is someone that has continued to attack basic scientists and doctors. He wants to gut the NIH and fire the employees. The NIH, those are America's scientists and doctors who are doing research to prevent pandemics, to prevent the spread of diseases. His actions, as we all know, have already actually caused measles epidemics in other parts of the world. And we're going to put this person in charge of our health. We just went through the single largest loss of life event, the pandemic, just a couple of years ago. And now Donald Trump wants to put a vaccine skeptic, vaccines, by the way, that saved millions of lives around the world, in charge of our health system. I can't tell you how irresponsible, shameful, and disgusting this pick is.
Well, something is causing people to turn trans and gay, because we have way more of them than we used to.
Many of those people probably have AIDS.
If it's not the fluoride, it is something. So what is causing the rise in homosexuality and transgender identity? I guess social acceptance. But the last 4 years. Okay, so I don't even understand what he's talking about there with COVID. I get that he's characterizing it as a mass death event, but it's simultaneously a mass death event of millions of people, but also millions were saved by the vaccine. So did millions die despite the vaccine, or were millions saved by the vaccine? I guess it's both. The vaccine both worked, but also it corresponded with the largest loss of life event ever, I believe is what he said there. Move aside World War II. Even though I was looking earlier today, even if you believe the official numbers on COVID deaths, which, as we know, people fall off a ladder, COVID death, people die in a motorcycle crash, COVID death, that number's like 7 million with the inflation. World War II, tens of millions of people. I don't know, to say it's the most significant death event or the largest death event, unless I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe I'm mishearing, but it sounds to me like he's saying it's the largest death event in the history of the world or something close. But for this guy not to understand that RFK's selection year and the election of Donald Trump, they're in large part a response to the lies and the overreach of these so-called health experts. Read the room. People don't believe that they were saved by the health experts. In fact, they believe these health experts imposed a bunch of unjust and nonsensical rules on their lives that, if not ruined their lives, caused significant hardship or unnecessary complication. And that's why, like, for all this lecture, I can't believe we're looking at experts at HHS. We would rather have actual clowns who shit their pants at HHS than the people who are currently there. And I'm not saying that RFK is that, of course. I'm saying in the perception of the average American, myself included, I don't see the value that these experts supposedly provided. I'd rather have a kindergarten class. Give me anything. I'll take my chances on literally anybody else. But the most insane thing I heard was this morning on ABC's This Week. Martha Raddatz. Remember, Martha, only a handful of apartment buildings are under Venezuelan gang control. Raddatz, per her exchange with J.D. Vance a few weeks ago. She was interviewing Richard Besser, who was acting CDC director under Obama. And Raddatz asked Besser why RFK's vaccine skepticism is a problem if he's not going to actually ban any vaccines. Like, okay, he doesn't like vaccines or he's skeptical of them personally. If he's not going to take action to ban your access to them, if you love them so much, what's really the problem? And Besser, I guess credit for honesty, he said, well, it's not really about banning them. It's about countering the idea that individuals have a choice in the matter.
Of all the horrible
that is
picks,
actually the problem. Hold on, here we go.
He said he does not intend to get rid of all vaccines, said he and his children had been vaccinated before the COVID vaccine, which they did not take. Would he get rid of them? Do you think he's lying about that?
Well, it's not a matter of getting rid of them. No vaccine is 100% protective. It's pushing the idea that vaccines should be something that is totally up to the individual. We have a social contract in our country. There are things we do for our own health, but there are things we do that are good for ourselves, our families, and our communities. And vaccination falls into that category. And having someone who denies that in that role is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, that, for all the accusations of radicalism or extremism, that is the actual radical and extreme statement. Understand what he's saying here. This is well beyond just, if schools want to require vaccines as a term of attendance, or if an employer wants to require vaccination as a term of employment, okay, you still have the right as an individual to not attend that school or not to work that particular job. He's saying something well beyond that you have a social contract that requires you to be injected regardless of your consent in general, not dependent on like a certain attendance or a certain job or something like that. Where is this contract? Implicit in the term contract is that it was voluntarily agreed to. It's not a contract if they point a gun at your face and you're required to abide by it by force. So for any talk of radicalism, that's about as extreme as it gets. That's the departure from the norm in this country. What he's talking about is an absolute Pfizerocracy. If Pfizer says it's good, well then per the social contract that Pfizer authored, the government gets to inject you by force. The social contract is courtesy of the pharmaceutical companies and all the godlike benevolence they inherently possess. Thankfully, they protect us all. But the best RFK fact check I saw came courtesy of the New York Times on Friday. An article titled, quote, "Kennedy's vow to take on big food could alienate his GOP allies." You scroll halfway down, and this is an all-time paragraph from the New York Times. Quote, "Mr. Kennedy has singled out Fruit Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the U.S. version. But he was wrong. The ingredient list is roughly the same, although Canada's has natural colorings made from blueberries and carrots, while the U.S. product contains red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as a chemical I can't even pronounce called BHT, a lab-made chemical that is used for freshness, according to the ingredient label. So how is he wrong? Exactly. Because he said the ingredients in the U.S. version of the cereal are artificial, or at least some of them are, and there are more ingredients in the U.S. version than the Canadian version. Both of those things are true. How a paragraph like this ever gets written, let alone approved by an editor, always amazing. It's not even a technical argument. You know, we often hear like, well, he said A, but actually it's really B because of hyper-precise reason XYZ. This actually reads RFK said A, but he's wrong because actually it's A. And that's the quality of the journalism over at the New York Times. But hey, it looks like my friend John is here. Let's bring him in, see what he has to say. Mr. Patton, how are you? Give him a second, see if he can hear me. Stand by. Oh, there we go. I got you now? Oh, well, I can't hear you, but apparently you can hear me.
There we go.
Oh, perfect. How are you, man? Thanks for joining.
I'm great. I'm great, man. I'm excited. I was just watching your feed, and the amount of ridiculous chemicals that they shove into our food it's kind of amazing.
Well, no, didn't you hear the New York Times fact check it?
Yeah, I read that earlier, and it was primo, just absolutely primo.
You know, we didn't rehearse this at all. We didn't set up. We just, fuck it, we'll do it live. And you're like, yeah, I think I got a setup that'll. Jesus, dude, you have like this is pristine. I mean, you got this.
I told you it would work.
I thought. This is putting me to shame, man. This looks great. This sounds great. You've done a really great job.
That's good. I'm glad. I'm happy to help.
Well, before I bury the lead, my guest tonight is Jon Patton at the Gun Collective. I didn't even give you a proper introduction because I was so impressed by this by the setup you have. But
you know what? It's the butylated hydroxy whatever the hell. That's what's screwing you up tonight.
Yeah, I got the brain cavities that I was warning about earlier. But the Gun Collective is your go-to source for all things breaking news in the gun industry. So, John, for people who don't know you or the Gun Collective, can you give us an introduction about your work?
So really, my focus is keeping up with whatever is new and interesting in the gun world, whether that's industry side, companies doing whatever they do, buying companies, moving, expanding, etc., firing people, whatever it may be, to new products, new optics, new pistols, new rifles, shotguns, you name it. That's the kind of stuff that I focus on. We've done reviews. We've done a lot of news. I've got my own podcast, and I do an event. I kind of have my hands in a lot of everything.
And it's theguncollective.com if you'd like to check all of that out. What's the latest that you're covering over at TGC?
I actually have an episode coming out on Tuesday that'll be like a bunch of new pistols, some new HK rifles. We talked actually in this coming episode about something that I thought we could talk about tonight, which is more of the potential picks from Donald Trump, which I think would be really interesting.
I'm definitely going through those, and if you want to talk about any in particular, you just let me know. But before I get too far ahead and I run out of time, I want to talk about the possible selection of the AK guy, Brandon Herrera, for ATF Director. Is this for real? Is this kind of just memery, or is this a serious thing?
So I thought it was total nonsense because he just kind of threw his name in there like, hey, I'll do it.
He just tweeted like, I'd be honored to do it. I mean, are there any talks?
I don't know if he has spoken directly to anyone over there. However, he did get an endorsement from Lauren Boebert, which is really weird.
Okay.
And I believe RFK put up some public poll, and he is ranking at the top of the poll for head of ATF. Which is absolute insanity, considering He's just a regular dude. Like he makes gun videos about memes. What is this world?
He had I didn't follow his congressional run closely. And well, I suppose I should back up. For people who don't know, he's a highly successful gun tuber. And you correct me if I'm wrong, because you know Brandon much better than I do. I don't know him at all, only through the news. But he went from this successful YouTube or video career into an attempted run at Congress and narrowly lost to the incumbent in that district in Texas, Tony Gonzalez, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that is 100% accurate. And I mean, he's still just like he's still that same Brandon. He just happens to also be getting more involved in politics. And I think it will be really interesting, especially with the potential of Matt Gaetz being considered for AG. We have this dynamic where Gaetz put forth, I think it was HR 347 I don't know the number, but it was the Abolish the ATF Act, right? And that's incredible in its own right. And then we have somebody like Brandon potentially taking that lead to an organization which I know he hates. Like he doesn't, he's like the rest of us. We all think that the ATF is a useless, tyrannical organization or a bureaucratic agency. And to see somebody that is like down with the ATF suddenly become the head of the ATF, I think we could take leaps and bounds forward for gun rights in the U.S., potentially getting suppressors off the NFA, potentially dismantling the NFA, potentially dismantling the Gun Control Act. I mean, there could be some big deals going on here.
I haven't read anything about a potential Trump pick otherwise. Now, obviously, he's going to put forth someone other than the joke that is Dettelbach. I will miss the comedy of that, man.
Oh, my
but
gosh,
not much
Dettelbach.
more.
What a just...
But have you heard any clues from Trump otherwise? Like, I'm thinking about this guy or that guy. Or if this is wide open, I would think that would work in Herrera's favor.
As far as I know, it's wide open. However, I mean, it's Trump. He could just pull somebody in last minute. I mean, as far as I know, this is considered a law enforcement position. And Brandon, as far as I know, again, has no experience in that role. So he may lean into that. He may lean into some bureaucracy.
Does he know how to disassemble a Glock? That's a good starting point.
Far better than Dettelbach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What a catastrophe. I mean, I don't know how so many of these people in these agencies know jack shit about what they're supposed to be regulating. Know nothing about it. Can't even speak on it. It's shocking.
Well, is it, or is that just a function of the way the administrative state works? It's less, for all the claims of expertise, it's really just about who knows who and who scratched whose back, and it's about relationships more than qualifications or expertise.
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm the type of guy that says I want these big gun companies to be run by gun enthusiasts so that we get better products as a gun owner, right? But oftentimes that is not the case. They're led by, people that are career CEOs that don't care about guns. And I would like people in charge of these government agencies to, care about what they're regulating. That would be an interesting plot twist.
You know Brandon fairly well. I don't want to mischaracterize your relationship, but you know him personally.
Sure.
Let's say
I've
that
known Brandon for like 10 years.
Let's say he became ATF director. I mean, you know his views, obviously, but do you think that what would his approach be? Would it be like bull in the china shop, delete key on everything? Or might he try to, I suppose, work within the system to achieve progress, if that makes sense?
I think Brandon is a lot smarter than he lets on through his content sometimes. I think Brandon is very intelligent, and although he may want to just go in and hit the delete key, I think he would want to understand it fundamentally so that he could more effectively delete it, if that makes sense.
Okay. I like that. Thorough, surgical. Well, no, I probably shouldn't do that. I was going to make like some kind of steamroller joke, but then they'll think it's like, the killdozer or something.
I was going to make a killdozer joke.
By all means, Brandon seems like a reasonable man in unreasonable times,
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Let me pose the question to you. You mentioned Matt Gaetz. Would you like to talk a little Matt Gaetz, or would you like to talk a different topic? I got a few that we could go to.
Let's roll. Let's go
Okay.
wherever you want to go, man.
Well, the Matt Gaetz thing is so complicated, and I haven't got into in terms of what's going to happen and in terms of the investigations into him. And I haven't done my breakdown for the stream yet. I could do that now, but that's going to take up like 10 minutes of your time. So I'll go reverse and just give me your thoughts on Matt Gaetz, and I'll get into the specifics later on once you're out of here.
So I hate his eyebrows. I think they're they make me uncomfortable.
Okay.
I hate them. I don't understand how that could be on someone's face. Besides that, I kind of have mixed feelings about him. I think he's a bit sleazy. And at the same time, I tend to agree with some of the things abolish the ATF. Hell yeah, I'm in. But I don't have a lot of knowledge of the rest of his career. I think he's a bit of a wild card. I don't think he's the best pick for AG. I would suggest Andrew Bailey out of Missouri, who I also have had I had him on my podcast not long ago. Great guy. I think he's very smart. He's doing a lot against the Biden regime.
Yeah, isn't he party to that big censorship, social media censorship lawsuit, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's one of the driving forces there.
And they're still pursuing that, are they not? I know that it had a disappointing... it wasn't really an end at the Supreme Court. It was a standing issue, if I recall correctly, and that was... Or am I confusing cases? Do you remember? I know the Supreme...
I don't. It's all like just this muddy mess at this point.
I know the case was not successful, but the parties pledged to return to it, and I believe it was a standing issue because the Supreme Court had concluded that the parties could not demonstrate direct censorship, as in the Biden administration was orchestrating the actions of the social media companies. Even though they had all this communication, that it was more like, hey, it'd be really cool if you could, but it's totally your decision, instead of like,
so we're just calling it implied censorship? Well, what is this?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Anyway,
These semantics. This reminds me of an article I read in the New York Times.
Yes. Good callback.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So even though you're skeptical of the eyebrows, which, frankly, is my biggest question mark.
Do you think it's Botox in the forehead? Like, what happened?
How
did that happen?
A lot of scalpels have been on that face.
It's
sure.
almost as if you gave a child a Wooly Willy kit and said, make him look angry, but not at the same time.
All right.
Hey,
that was a good one. I like that.
That's what I'm here for.
But okay, so despite the eyebrows, would you support, say, a Matt Gaetz attorney general term, or would you be optimistic about, say, what it might represent legally or politically, regardless of the eyebrow implications?
I mean, at this point, anybody besides Merrick Garland is a positive thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's be fair. That dude's a piece of crap and has made it his job to try and push back and sort of support the nonsense of the Biden administration. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't know how many lawsuits there were. It was the pistol brace lawsuit, the bump stock thing, the Cargill like there's a whole bunch that were going against him and the United States and blah, blah, blah. I just want to see him gone. I want to see people in that role that support freedom.
Yeah.
And if that happens to be Matt Gaetz, then cool.
Even if it comes with terrible eyebrows, priorities.
Listen, we got the orange guy in the main office, a couple eyebrows on the side, entertainment.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought a lot about what's going to happen with all those ATF-directed lawsuits. You mentioned the pistol brace one, which is still ongoing, right? It's still in litigation, the pistol brace stuff, or is that settled? I can't remember.
If my understanding is that it is settled. However, there was 4 or 5 lawsuits.
Yeah.
I know FRAC had one, FPC had one, and there's probably a couple others that I'm forgetting about. I believe the FPC-based case out of Texas is the one that ended up being settled, and I think GOA might have been tied in on that one. But I know the frat case is still ongoing, so we shall see where that all shakes out. We shall see.
Yeah, and there's the ghost gun stuff, the frame stuff still going on. And what's your general attitude toward a second Trump presidency? When I look back at the first one, I mean, I know for a lot of people it's a niche issue seemingly, but it's actually crucially important. The bump stock stuff, you referenced Cargill earlier. And of course he was successful in getting that challenged at the Supreme Court. Yep. But the bump stock stuff to me is one of the biggest letdowns or failures of the first Trump term. Insofar as he participated in in redefining personal property outside of the legislature and compelling people to surrender or forfeit it under the threat of massive fines or prison terms. And obviously, I don't want to see things like that happen with pistol braces or 80% kits and that kind of stuff. Do you think that Trump has seen some light on those things, or should we expect to have a lot of those things come back?
So my answer to that is a little bit complicated. I am skeptical of a Trump presidency, period. I'm skeptical because of certain things that he's done, specifically that and another issue. But when it comes to bump stocks, I'm told that he was given the wrong information. This is what they told us.
Who's
right?
they?
And here's the thing.
Okay.
I was in a room with some of the Trump team, including Kash Patel, and the thing that they told us was, look, he was sort of fed some bad information, and now he's going to be listening to us. And it was a room full of people that are high up at the GOA, and it was a bunch of us gun tubers. And my buddy Sean Herrera.
So this is real. There's like Trump gun tube conferences.
Dude, it's the craziest thing.
Send me an invitation the next time it happens.
Ever would have called that this would be the thing. But if I have a line into the Trump administration, either directly or indirectly, I will absolutely take every step that I can, and I know everybody else in that room will do the same, to make sure that we secure our gun rights for the future, right? And I also want to get into the other thing that Trump said that I think
please,
kind of gets pushed aside, but it's almost more important to me, and that was take the guns first, due process later.
Yeah.
That's a huge, huge problem. I think Donald Trump often is in salesman mode, right? Like he's just trying to sell something to kind of get something done, right? Like he's selling an idea, he's selling a concept, he's throwing out stuff, and it's not always the right thing to say at that time. However, what he said is pushing towards red flag laws, and people like Rick Scott and some of these other politicians out there pushing red flag laws are just an atrocity to freedom. Like they are the antithesis of what we are trying to do as a nation. The idea that a red flag law could happen, I think it could still happen nationally. I would never want to see it. I think it's absolutely insane that it's even a question. But he did say those things, and that does make me skeptical.
All right. Well, cautious optimism, I suppose.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it.
That's probably a good time to wrap up, and I'll carry on with more of these picks that Trump is making for his cabinet. But before I let you go, one, did you have any final thoughts? And two, I want to make sure that we're promoting all your stuff over at TGC correctly. So I guess I'll go in reverse order. I've got theguncollective.com. Linked in the description. You can check that out if you'd like to find Jon Patton and the Gun Collective. Great work over there.
Hey, look, it's me. There I
am. Great photography. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great gradient. I like the red tones. Overall, excellent look.
Thank you.
But is there anything else Gun Collective or personal that you'd like to promote?
I really just want to see people out there pushing back for gun rights, and not just at a federal level, at a state level, at a local level. Get involved. Go fight for your rights, because this fight is not over. He is not inaugurated yet, and we have not won back everything yet.
Well said. And thanks for stopping by. And I actually lied. I had one more question that I almost forgot.
I have time for you, brother.
Are you related to George?
I am not. I am not. My grandfather owned a car dealership.
Oh, well, that's perfectly respectable too.
Yeah, I get that question all the time.
All right. Well, that's my guest, Jon Patton from the Gun Collective. Hey, thanks for stopping by. And as we mentioned, I hope you'd like to come back in the future, and we'd love to have you over here. We appreciate your contribution
for sure, man.
to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Everybody out there, thanks for letting me jump in on your stream tonight. I appreciate everybody out there watching.
All right. Have a great night, man.
See ya.
Okay, we will get back into the news. Before we take a break at the top of the hour, I do want to get back into Trump's picks. Left off with RFK and, of course, his lies about your Fruit Loops cereal. But before we get to Matt Gaetz, as I was discussing with John there, I want to discuss a little bit of Pete Hegseth, who, of course, is the pick for Defense Department. And this came as, I suppose, something of a surprise pick for many. But Pete Hegseth is, of course, publicly known as a Fox News host. He was a Minnesota Army National Guard, or he was in the Minnesota Army National Guard. He did multiple tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. He earned 2 Bronze Stars. He's also a graduate of Harvard and Princeton, and he's been a public critic of the military and Defense Department's experimentation with diversity programs and, of course, social engineering, as opposed to more traditional concepts like, say, combat and support effectiveness. But that's old news. That was early in the week. The more important news is, of course, Pete Hegseth grabbed a boob or an ass, or maybe went further than that a few years ago. Who knows? He settled a sexual assault claim. In 2017, he was a speaker at a conference of California Republican women. Local police investigated. They filed no charges. Hegseth paid the accuser to go away. He acknowledges the encounter happened, but he says it was consensual. That'll be a controversy for a few days. The real controversy is that he's actually a white supremacist. This according to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund president Sherilyn Ifill on MSNBC this week.
Add the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who, weekend host, important distinction. This is someone who, is known to be a white supremacist, known to be an extremist, whose platform, whose book is basically about his opposition to the advancement of black officers to the top brass.
She's going to need a legal defense fund for her defamatory statements, potentially. What's the evidence that Hegseth is a white supremacist? While I was looking, and she referenced this in the segment, Hegseth has controversial tattoos of a Jerusalem cross and the words Deus Vult, which, of course, is Latin for God wills it. Why are those things white supremacist? Because they're symbols rooted in the Crusades, which sounds more Christian supremacist, if anything, but okay. Hegseth was actually removed from Biden's 2021 inauguration for being deemed extremist due to his tattoos. So it's not his first run-in with the tattoo law. Now, Hegseth, of course, is supposedly controversial because he also opposes women in combat roles, as everyone in history has until about 5 seconds ago. Not just because it reduces combat effectiveness, of course, but because it's also cruel to women, too, which is why it's very strange for there to be this feminist rallying cry of, yes, we want to get shot and blown up, too. It's our right as equals. I guess credit for consistency, but I don't know. This morning on ABC's This Week, Senator-elect Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan said that actually diversity increases military readiness and effectiveness, and that's why Pete Hegseth is such a problem. He's an opponent of military diversity.
But there have been issues with recruiting of late, and Hegseth talks about that.
Sure. I mean, there's issues with recruiting. I think you talk to any business leader, there's issues with recruiting as well. There's just a high demand signal, but I don't think that showing that you can be summarily fired in this system is a way to increase recruiting.
He said it would attract normal males if we...
Well, his idea of normal may be different. We want a diverse force. Right now, the military is one of the most diverse institutions in the world. So the officer corps should reflect that diversity. And that's just not me saying it. That's the Supreme Court of the United States. When they went after diversity issues at our campuses, they excluded our service academies, West Point, the Naval Academy, because they understood that a diverse workforce, a diverse officer corps is a national security issue in the United States.
Yes, our enemies tremble at the prospect of multiple skin tones behind the barrels that are pointed at them. It's not the weapons, it's not the proficiency, it's not the skill, it's not the fitness, it's not the bravery. It's how many different races or genders or sexual preferences there are within the fighting force that makes it truly formidable, and our enemies know that. Thanks to, at least according to Alyssa Slotkin. Now, she confused a lot of issues there. Number one, I don't think firing people is going to increase recruiting. Yes, it will if you fire the right people. When people see that the wrong people are fired or punished for poor performance or poor behavior, that actually shows you, wow, if I go in and I'm a good performer and I have skill and I have valuable assets, that I will be promoted, that I have access to leadership, that I have upward mobility. If instead you send the signal, as the military often is these days, well, we don't necessarily care about performance. We mostly care about demographic considerations. What encouragement is that to the average white farm kid who might join the Army or join the Marine Corps or any of the other branches, if he knows that when he gets there, well, there's going to be a whole bunch of disadvantages stacked against me because Alyssa Slotkin and company think that the promotion ought to go to a person with more melanin because somehow that automatically makes us a more effective fighting force. So her point that firing people doesn't help recruitment, whatever we're doing now doesn't help recruitment. And you can see that in the data. Now, you heard her make that point. The Supreme Court actually says that diversity is a huge asset to the military. Well, if that sounds a little odd, that's because it is. I looked into the details of this. When the Supreme Court cracked down on diversity policies at colleges, affirmative action stuff, they excluded the military academies, as she describes, on the possibility that they may have distinct interests, unique from, say, just your normal college campuses. Remember, whenever you're talking about limiting a fundamental constitutional right, in this case, say, equal protection, it's not as though it can never happen. It's that the government policy has to be narrowly tailored in pursuit of a compelling government interest. So John Roberts, in writing the opinion, was leaving the door open that maybe the military might have a compelling interest in considering these factors, something beyond what the universities and colleges in this country do. But he did not take a stance and say, a diverse military absolutely is a big improvement. No. As you see in the CNN coverage, in a footnote in the majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts said the cases before the court, quote, did not address the issue and left open the possibility that there are potentially distinct interests that military academies may present in a future case. Okay. He carved it out because maybe there's something else to be considered there. This was not an affirmative statement that, diversity is actually a huge benefit in the military. And besides, that's a different question than what Hegseth was addressing when Alyssa Slotkin is saying, well, we have to have diverse officer corps. We have to have diverse leadership because that helps the military in ways X, Y, and Z. Well, that's not actually what Pete Hegseth is saying. Pete Hegseth is saying, I don't think we should put women in combat roles. Okay? Your officer corps is a different question from that. And because there's no evidence that putting women for diversity's sake or equity's sake into combat roles actually improves combat effectiveness. In fact, as you would expect, all the evidence is to the contrary, that it significantly compromises combat effectiveness. The Marine Corps tested this out in 2015. They put all male teams up against mixed gender teams, as in men and women. I don't think there were any trannies in these units, but maybe. I suppose they have yet to study that. But they put them in these various combat simulation challenges. So some teams are all guys, some teams are guys plus women. Per coverage in the Marine Corps Times at the time, quote, all male ground combat teams outperformed their mixed gender counterparts in nearly every capacity during a recent infantry integration test, Marine Corps officials revealed. The female Marines regularly required assistance to complete the same physical tasks. They were slower to complete those tasks, and they suffered injuries at significantly higher rates. The Marine Corps did not... sorry, I botched my own joke. Let's try again. The Marine Corps did note that the mixed gender units had much higher rates of gossiping and complaining, though. So maybe we can count on our enemies, that's twice. Maybe we can count on these diverse units to nag our enemies to death. I tried. I really did. Speaking of comic relief and the need for it, let me see. You know who's here? It's our super chat buddy, Knuckle Hunky Buck. Let's see if we can get him in here. There he is. You know,
Mr. Christiansen, how you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for joining. You know, your timing is perfect because I just botched a joke that I thought was a real banger, and it didn't go well. So I need your assistance. And before I get to that, I mentioned earlier today, and I haven't even showed it to you. I put together. Now this is temporary because my voice work sucks compared to the guy I'm trying to get. But I put together an intro bit for you. Are you ready?
All right, let's hear it.
Knock. Who's there?
Knuckles.
And now it's time for Super Chats with Knuckle Hunky Buck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
What do you think?
I love it. I do have to say that I resent Tim Walz calling himself a knucklehead, though.
Why?
I guess I'm surprised to find out he's a fan of mine. I didn't think he'd be a fan. I'm not a fan of his. I'm not a Walz head.
Big fan club. That's right. Okay. Well, you got your super chats queued up?
I sure do.
All right. Well, go ahead.
All right. Once again, starting with Long Dong John this week. So when are the Bucks County Democrats who started counting illegal ballots saying, we know it's illegal, we're doing it anyway, will come and stop us getting arrested?
That's not going to happen. It's just going to be a court order that comes down and says, stop doing that. And that'll be pretty much it. I'm going to get into that story later in the show. It's pretty insane if you haven't seen it. The democracy defenders are suddenly questioning election results and knowingly counting legally unqualified ballots in Pennsylvania.
They're going to try to fortify it after the fact still?
That sounds like it. And Bob Casey's still not conceding. So he's hanging around.
Well, it's using the Biden legal strategy. Oh, I know it's illegal. Just waiting for the court to tell me I can't.
Come on, man.
Who's up next?
All right, we got Holden Mulray. Hi, Matt. Trump aimed to drain the swamp last go around, but it turned out to be a federally protected wetlands. I sure hope he has better success this time. God bless.
Well, I'm obviously mostly encouraged by the picks so far. I do have some questions about, I don't know. I just don't know what to think of Matt Gaetz. But obviously, as my friend Jon Patton was saying, I'll take Matt Gaetz any day of the week over Merrick Garland. So I don't want to be too pessimistic. I think the themes of the selections are generally on point. So I'm encouraged.
Yeah, I don't know how it would be considered a federally protected wetlands, though. I mean, the species that live there are mostly rats and skunks, and I don't think those are really endangered at all, but not in Washington.
Thank you. You're on point. I think all biological life is endangered there is really the technicality.
Well, no, they endanger the lives of the rest of the country.
I see.
But Disturbed 2K7 got sup, baby girl. I fully support Brandon Herrera to redefine the ATF. Also, you should see Biden approved long-range missiles into Russia. UK and France also said, yeah. What's up with that? Anywho, God bless.
I don't know anything about that latter part. I assume that's part of one of those million weapons packages that were approved for Ukraine that just become like a page 10 headline every other month or so. Another billion, majillion, quadrillion dollar package for Ukraine, and nobody really looks at it.
Well, and it's actually the first part that I'm more interested in. Sup, baby girl.
Ah,
are you baby girl?
Yeah. I guess I hadn't thought about that, but that is an important question.
Are you gay?
All right. We've got the best. Dave Smith is going to have a show in Bozeman on January 18th, a Saturday. You should go for a great show. I think you'd like his material on fatherhood, and maybe you'd be able to meet with him after and get him to come on the show sometime.
I did hear about that. I do know he's coming to town, and it's possible I may go. I will say, speaking of fatherhood, outings for my wife and for me are rare these days, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what our plans are, but it's cool that he's coming to town, and he seems like a good dude. So I hope the show works out.
I'm unfamiliar with Dave Smith. Is he a comedian or what?
See, the problem is now I never know if you're serious or if you are setting up a bit. So you have to qualify. Are you serious?
No, I legitimately don't
know.
Who
He's
Dave Smith
he's
is,
like
not off
he's
the top of my head.
He's a comedian guy, but he's big in libertarian politics.
Oh, okay.
And so I mostly know him from the political angle as opposed to like his comedy. So I assume he's funny. He seems very intelligent, so he probably has good comedy too. But I know him mostly from his politics that are he's always debating people. He's got a huge Twitter following, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I've got VV. It's always a good idea to be skeptical and keep pushing forward. Don't let your guard down, even if your guy wins.
Of course, yeah. You should have an inherent skepticism of government. The country's founded on it, and I'm excited for the Trump show. But the Trump show had some serious pitfalls last time too, and I think we ought to be wary and guard against those. So wisdom taken, certainly, VV.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the right wing. That tends to be one of our strengths. We definitely criticize our own guy a hell of a lot more than the left does.
Yeah, maybe too much of that. I don't know. I mean, I hate team for team's sake type stuff. Like, I guess what I'm saying is if the team isn't organized around a value or a principle, then what is the value of the team? That's why we're on the same team, so we have each other's back no matter what. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that sort of stuff is wise or good, but there is a trade-off there where like, okay, you stand by the principle at the expense of your team, and what happens? The unified team that opposes you defeats you, and the principle you're trying to protect suffers for it. So it's a difficult spot, but
yeah. All right, I've got Kaiser and Gilroy. The Democrats are a collection of feminists, atheists, goofballs, and soy boys. What does the first letter of those four groups spell?
I've got one for that.
You're a faggot.
Yeah. Or where's my oh wait, I like this one too.
Wow. Good going, fag.
That's what they should have at their convention.
Little Team America. I'll have to rewatch that one. I actually just rewatched the ending to Rocky Balboa over the weekend, but I watched it on Netflix. The color was all screwed up. The old champ actually was black, and the young kid that the crowd didn't respect was white.
Actually, that movie's so far lost in my mind that I can't grade that joke because I can't remember what the arrangement was.
It was a reference to the Tyson versus Paul fight. It was basically the ending of Rocky Balboa.
Okay, see, I'm ruining the bit here. That was a great joke. I thought this is like the knuckle hunky buck chats that are over my head. I'm like, this guy actually watched the original Rocky on Netflix? What? I didn't watch the fight. And
Not
so
the
I
original Rocky, but Rocky Balboa.
Well, I don't see it. Despite watching 150 movies and rating them, I don't know the difference. They're all the same to me. Yes, I didn't watch the fight. Did you?
I wasn't able to watch it. I was at work, so I listened to it. It reminded me of like old timey, like listening to a baseball game on the radio. But I mean, it sounded like a decent enough fight. Like maybe they were kind of going a little soft on each other, but I don't know. I was definitely pretty disappointed with the outcome. I was hoping to see Mike Tyson just beat the face in of some stupid YouTuber. I mean, who doesn't want to see Mike Tyson beat the hell out of every YouTuber?
Well, you missed it by 20 years, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Mike Tyson Prime and YouTube didn't have much overlap to work with, but at least they tried.
You gonna try to step in the ring with Tyson next?
Well, based on how it went, maybe I have a chance. Got to do a little bit of training, but I don't know. I've enjoyed all the memes like, Jake Paul has pledged to have a home run derby with Babe Ruth, who died in 1945 or whatever. There's a million of those, but all right, man. Well, let's catch up with Rumble and I'll let you get out of here.
All right. We've got Elbot PN with no note.
Appreciate his contribution to the show. Of course.
And then we've got Yakko 1977. Are expectations for Trump's cabinet too high? I ask that not in regards to what they want to do, but can he get them into their positions in the first place? He's got a lot of rhinos to contend with.
I'm gonna defer that point to the stream in about 10 minutes because I want to talk about the practical considerations and whether this idea of using recess appointments is a thing that's going to happen or a thing that's even legal necessarily. So I'll get to that momentarily. But thank you, Mr. Hunky Buck. I appreciate you stopping by and your support for the show as always.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for having me.
All right. Have a great night.
All right. You too.
Okay, there he goes. Knuckle Hunky Buck, legend of Super Chat. I do have a couple more over on Odyssey just to get to before I get back into the news. Let's see. Oh, it's actually about the Tyson v. Paul fight. Hey, Blankets over on Odyssey says, hey, Matt, did you see the fight? Some are saying it was scripted. I didn't see it. Sounds like a lot of people didn't see it based on how it went. If you did, you saw it in very low, hardly visible resolution. So I didn't see it. But anyway, Blankets also says, what time are your favorite thing? What time? What are some of your favorite things about Thanksgiving? I mean, the classic stuff, being with family and the food. I got to say, it's always my mom's mashed potatoes, and the stuffing is good too. I always joke with my wife because it's not like my mom has some magical mashed potato recipe. It's very simple. It's potatoes, it's butter, it's gravy. There's nothing super fancy about it. But when my wife tries to make mashed potatoes, the gag is always, they're not my mom's, They're not my mom's. And that's kind of the thing about mom's cooking. Nobody can ever do it exactly like your mom does. So yeah, that's what I look forward to with Thanksgiving. But of course, now that I have, my son is 3 and I've got another son who's about to turn 1, they're entering the age where they can really enjoy that food in the same way. And so it's kind of a new phase of Thanksgiving and enjoying my mom's cooking. In the way that I did when I was really young and the way I continue to do as an old man. So I look forward to my sons getting that experience too. Thank you, Blankets. Appreciate you. And we're good over on D Live. So let's get back into the news. I'll come back to your Super Chats at the end of the stream.
I'll have to just circle back with you.
And I left off, so we just covered Pete Hegseth. I want to get into Tulsi Gabbard a little bit. Because continuing the tradition of picking disaffected Democrats for his cabinet, of course, RFK Jr., as discussed earlier, Trump picked former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard, of course, ended Kamala Harris's first presidential campaign in 2019, pointing out her hypocrisy on marijuana prosecutions in California. Now she joins the Trump administration that prevented a Kamala administration the second time. Unless the Biden administration counts as a Kamala administration. Who knows? It probably does, kind of. Her name was on it as the vice president, but it might have been on it as in a broader leadership role than we realize. Anyway, or, Obama had control of it or whatever. But the Director of National Intelligence oversees the 18 intelligence agencies, which include the intel arms of all the branches of the military, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and more. Now, critics, of course, point to Tulsi's lack of intelligence experience. And personally, I'm a little bit skeptical of all of her politics. She has changed her mind about a lot of things lately, and I appreciate that. I just always wonder like how sincere people are in their mind changing. But the longer she goes, I suppose the more established that becomes. Regardless of my own skepticism about her political positions, I do appreciate that she is coming from the other side instead of being someone established within the intel community. She's coming from the other side as in abused by the intel community, or at least that's what she says. Tulsi Gabbard says that she was wrongly on the terror watch list. She said over the summer, just before boarding a flight on July 23rd, my husband and I were pulled aside for additional TSA screening. We were told by the TSA agent that this was just a random selection. Now, that might have been believable if it had happened once or twice, but 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row, there's no way. Federal Air Marshal whistleblowers came forward with very disturbing information. They revealed that I, Tulsi Gabbard, had been on a secret terror watch list run by the TSA called Quiet Skies on July 23rd. This is the very same day that my husband and I began to be subjected to those in-depth TSA searches. Gabbard went on to claim that she had been targeted because of her criticism of Vice President Kamala Harris. The TSA placed me on the Quiet Skies domestic terror watch list in what I can only describe as the ultimate betrayal, she says. So if she comes to this position with the aim of reining in spy agency excesses, good, because they've had a very long run of overreach. They've had a very long run of existence for many of them, frankly. But whatever people want to say about the experience, I appreciate this perspective and skepticism potentially gaining a little bit of power. Now, for her critics, it's not just the lack of intel experience. It's the fact that Tulsi is actually a tool of our enemies. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who knows a thing or two about disgraceful corruption, of course, see her resignation as DNC chair in 2016. Debbie Wasserman Schultz says Tulsi Gabbard is certainly a Russian asset.
Tulsi Gabbard is someone who has met with war criminals, violated the Department of State's guidance, and secretly, clandestinely went to Syria and met with Assad, who gassed and attacked his own people with chemical weapons. She's considered to be essentially, by most assessments, a Russian asset, and would be the most.
Is that how you consider her? Is that what you consider her?
Oh yes, there's no question.
Now, as you guys know, I go to all of the Russian asset parties. I have never seen Tulsi there, so I can confirm she is not a Russian asset. And what is Debbie's evidence? Or what does she mean when she says, by most assessments, she's a Russian asset? Unclear. She actually did not offer any evidence or support, other than maybe her best friend Hillary Clinton says the same thing and made the same accusation against Tulsi. Hillary said this during the 2020 presidential campaign. This was in 2019. She said on a podcast that the Russians have their eye on, she didn't name Tulsi, but it was clear that she was talking about Tulsi. Somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary grooming her to be their third party candidate. What was Hillary's evidence? Again, even according to CNN, no proof. And it wasn't just Tulsi Gabbard. I don't remember this, but they're reporting it. I assume it happened. Hillary also accused Jill Stein of being a Russian asset in 2012 and 2016. Likewise, I don't think there was much evidence for that. So everyone I don't like is a Russian. We're still playing this game, and apparently people are still buying it. But I want to get into to the Matt Gaetz selection for Attorney General. And this is probably the most controversial pick of them all, and the one that is going to be the most interesting to see how it plays out if he actually becomes Attorney General. Because Matt Gaetz, frankly, has a lot of enemies. Of course, Democrats hate him as they would really any Republican, but he's him in particular as a Trump loyalist has a lot of hate among Democrats. Has a lot of enemies among Republicans too, though, especially after he led the effort to oust former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last year. Now, Gaetz has also been the subject of investigations on allegations that he had sex with a 17-year-old girl, which would put him potentially in jeopardy for violating sex trafficking laws, or at least that was the legal theory. The DOJ has investigated and has not brought charges, as I'll get to in a moment. But given those accusations, A former Democratic Congressman, Mark Rose, said on MSNBC this week, well, there's no way Matt Gaetz actually becomes Attorney General because, well, not because, but he's not going to become Attorney General. He's just going to have to pull out.
But I do agree he will probably have to pull out. Excuse me, that's a bad choice of words. Matt Gaetz. He will have to pull out before there's a hearing, I think, because I think this is really not going to be something that goes over well when it comes to a Gaetz hearing.
That's disgusting.
Yes, Matt Gaetz will have to pull out once again, according to the analyst on MSNBC. But as far as the investigation, so these allegations date back to late 2020. The allegations against Gaetz were investigated by Merrick Garland's DOJ. There were no charges brought against Merrick Garland or against Matt Gaetz by Merrick Garland's DOJ. Presumably that's a settled matter in terms of federal law now. But there has been an ongoing House Ethics Committee investigation that's been active for the last year and a half. It was brought forth and then paused because of the DOJ investigation, then it resumed. But there's been this ongoing House ethics investigation. That report is not yet released. And considering the investigation is about whether that person is suitable to serve in Congress, whether it gets released now that Matt Gaetz is resigning to pursue this attorney general job is an open question at this point. Now, the House ethics investigation is not a criminal investigation. They don't have the power to do any kind of criminal enforcement. It is about the ethics of serving members of Congress. And Matt Gaetz is no longer that because he resigned immediately from his seat in Congress upon his nomination or upon Trump's announcement of the nomination last week. Now, traditionally, that would mean that the House Ethics Committee violation, or the House Ethics Committee investigation is over, and the report would not be released, considering that the investigation is, again, about whether that person is suitable to serve in Congress. If they're not in Congress anymore, the investigation from the Ethics Committee is really moot. But in this case, Gaetz, of course, is being nominated to be Attorney General. The findings of this report would, of course, be relevant to the assessment of whether he's suitable to be Attorney General. And so many members of Congress are calling on the Ethics Committee to release the report, since its findings, of course, will be relevant in that judgment and his Attorney General candidacy. Now, just a guess by me, I would think it's highly likely that happens. The political pressure from both parties to release this report will be very high. As far as I'm aware, there are no legal complications for doing it, other than perhaps redacting the identities of certain people, including people who were minors at the time. The ethics investigation did actually interview the now woman, then 17-year-old girl who was involved. She's part of that. Maybe her identity would be concealed, that sort of thing. But the lawyer who represents that woman is also calling for the report to be released. So it's not like she or her lawyer have some kind of privacy concerns that would prevent it or something like that. So the big question, too, is what's going on here, given the controversy, given what is probably going to be the toughest road to confirmation for any of Trump's picks. What is the strategy here? What are we watching? And there are several theories about what we're seeing. The first of them, and the most simple, just being face value. Trump, as we know, loves loyalty, hates the Justice Department, hates what they've done to him, hates what they've done to his supporters. And Matt Gaetz is a very loyal guy who you could put in position to go bust up the Justice Department and right a lot of the wrongs that were committed against Donald Trump personally and many of his supporters. In fact, just Matt Gaetz having a mere presence in the second he got confirmed as Attorney General, if that happened, you probably what percent of the DOJ would resign immediately? It's probably pretty sizable. But there are some other theories about what's happening here. A Politico report this week.
But I do agree. He will
Someday I'm going to get better at my video clip management, I swear. But thank you for bearing with the duct tape. I hope it's part of the appeal. The Politico has a report this week that explains some theories among members of Congress about what's going on here. Because again, the question is, if this guy has a lot of enemies in both parties and it's going to be very difficult to get him confirmed, why are they doing this? Why is Trump doing this? Why is Gaetz doing this? According to Politico's reporting, pretty much every Hill Republican we spoke with thinks there's something strange going on here. One theory we heard over and over from bewildered Republicans is that perhaps by picking him, being Gaetz, Trump is giving Gaetz an out from the ethics report, which seems possible, and that Gaetz is returning the favor by becoming a sacrificial lamb who will ease the way for Trump's eventual pick for AG, which seems like a stretch potentially. But the theory here would be by making a highly controversial original pick in Matt Gaetz, Trump gets all the controversy out of the way, and then he puts forth his actual pick, and there's a lot less heat on that pick by comparison. But the story considers some other possibilities. The theory that Gaetz is just trying to avoid the coming ethics committee report, that like by resigning from Congress and having a reason to, that the ethics report will just go away. But as I just discussed, and as the story notes, there's no guarantee that his resignation from Congress does anything. In fact, the release of the report seems very likely. It seems like politically there's going to be a lot of push for that. Alternatively, maybe Trump is just doing a loyalty test. This is the idea pushed by the New York Times this week, or at least Ezra Klein at the New York Times. It might just be a simple Trump loyalty test. Pick someone controversial and see who in the party actually sticks by Trump. Put Republican senators on record, and you get to assess who supports you and who doesn't. Now, Matt Gaetz says he's resigning not to cover up this coming ethics report or anything like that, but to make sure that his seat in Florida gets filled as quickly as possible. Speaker Mike Johnson said he spoke with Matt Gaetz, and Gaetz said the reasoning that Gaetz's reasoning for resigning so abruptly was because the House can't sustain too many Republican absences. Of course, the coming majority will be very, very slim. Florida state law gives the governor about an 8-week period to fill a House vacancy, which means they could get someone in that seat near the start of the new Congress in January if they move quickly. The minimum time legally possible, according to reporting in the Pensacola News-Journal, is 6 weeks. So the governor could announce a special election. There'd be a primary and a general election at least 2 weeks apart within a 6-week window. Now, Gaetz' district is strongly Republican. He just won re-election by 30 points. You will have another Republican member of Congress from that district in the panhandle of Florida. It's just a question of when or how quickly. Now, given the controversy, or air quotes controversy, again, I don't necessarily think that the bulk of these are controversial, at least any more controversial than the clowns we've seen running these agencies for the last 4 years. But given the air quotes controversy of these nominations and very likely at least partial Republican opposition to match near unanimous Democrat opposition, how likely are these nominations to succeed and actually get confirmed? Now, through the traditional process, Senate hearings, confirmation vote, there may be some theory, there may be some hurdles. In theory, if Republicans unite, they got that 53-seat majority in the Senate, all the nominations will get confirmed. But how many Romneys, how many Murkowskis, how many Collinses are going to mess things up? They're always there, and it seems like they always have just enough. So what else could happen? Well, there's also the potential, the prospect of a so-called recess appointment. What Vox is calling what would be a stunning power grab for Trump. I'm not sure if the power grab was just as stunning when their god Obama did it to get around the Senate back during his presidency. But under Article 2 of the Constitution, the president has the power to make appointments on his own when the Senate is in recess. Now, when I reference Obama there, that's because Obama did this or tried to do this with the National Labor Relations Board and the guy who was directing the newly created Consumer Financial Protection Bureau back in 2012. Now, Obama's move to just unilaterally fill these positions because the Senate was in recess was challenged to the Supreme Court. There was some dispute about whether the Senate was actually in recess or whether it was just a fake to get around his nominations. But the Supreme Court ruled, they undid those appointments and said, no, it's actually up to Congress to decide when it is in recess, not the president. So you can't do that, Obama. Now, this situation with Trump would be slightly different only insofar as Trump would have some congressional help. He's got allies in power in Congress. So he can get the Senate to go into recess through a few different ways. Now, I suppose the Senate could just do that voluntarily, or there's some kind of technical ways this could happen. Say that Trump wants the House and the Senate to go into recess. The House doesn't agree, and the Senate does schedule a recess. They can't reconcile the two houses of Congress. Well, that's where the Constitution actually has a solution for that. The Constitution, Article 2, Section 3, gives the power to the president to force adjournment, as in congressional recess, when the two houses disagree about setting the terms for a recess. That presidential power has actually never been used in the history of the country, but it's in there, so I guess it could be invoked. Now, of course, the question is what's going to happen with Senate leadership. Now, strictly speaking, with these confirmation hearings and the process of confirmation, the House is not involved in that. It only would be involved insofar as maybe there's some weird recess strategy here. But the question is the new Senate Majority Leader on board with such a strategy? Well, of course, the new Senate Majority Leader replacing Mitch McConnell is John Thune of South Dakota, who was picked by his senatorial peers this week. Now, John Thune has had a career of opposing Trump in many cases, but right now he's saying that he's open to the idea of facilitating these recess appointments. He said on Fox News this week that all options are on the table, including explicitly recess appointments, though he says hopefully it doesn't get to that. So what does that imply? That implies that he's pretty committed to the traditional method of going through this, and if Democrats really become insufferable, then maybe he'll do what he has to do. My guess is that the recess appointment strategy doesn't happen, certainly not at least initially. I bet they go through that traditional route, and unless Democrats are absolutely unworkable, they don't go to something that is, well, at least the move for Trump to try to force a recess would be unprecedented in this country. Now, toughest confirmation prospect, I think, is Matt Gaetz. Due to his controversies, due to the existing Republican opposition. But depending on the theory that you buy about what's going on with Matt Gaetz, maybe the intent isn't to get him into the AG's office anyway. Maybe it's just to sponge all of the Democrat rage and all of their deranged energy so the next nominee has an easier process. This is all business that we're not going to get any resolution to in the near future. Of course, the nominations aren't official until Trump actually takes the oath of office. Only upon the official nomination is Congress going to be considering. The new Congress, of course, isn't seated until early January anyway. So we're not going to get answers to this. We're not going to get to see how this plays out until well into the new year, unless somebody, say, withdraws their consideration, withdraws their nomination due to political pressure or some sort of clarity that the votes in support are just not there even before the hearings are ever had. But we're gonna be looking at this speculation all the way through the holidays, so enjoy that. Now, in response to the Trump cabinet picks this week, one Democrat congressman is proposing their party's own, quote, shadow cabinet. Democrats should get their own cabinet. They should get their own AG. They should get their own director of national intelligence. They should get their own HHS secretary. Now, shadow cabinet sounds very ominous and secretive, and indeed the opposite of what Democrats preach, respecting the Democrat process and the will of the people. So otherwise, right on brand with their rampant contradictions. But Democrat Congressman Wiley Nickel of North Carolina published this idea in a Washington Post op-ed this week, and he also explained it on the House floor.
We can't let Donald Trump's extreme MAGA agenda go unanswered or unopposed. So here's an idea for how to organize our opposition. We need to borrow from our British friends and appoint a shadow cabinet to fight back against the worst abuses of a second Trump administration. If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as shadow education secretary. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad.
Now, upon investigation, this is less ominous and more just stupid. As you heard him say, this is really borrowing an idea from the UK. I guess they do this in Canada, too. But the idea would be we give Democrats these pet advisory roles within all the administrative agencies, or these roles under the actual cabinet. And the better term, I think, would be mirror cabinet, not shadow cabinet, and actually maybe funhouse mirror cabinet. You get goofy, distorted clown presentations through the funhouse mirror cabinet, and they really serve as comic relief for the actual government. But all this shadow cabinet would do is just voice opposition. But Democrats already do that all day, every day. So I guess what they want is just some fancy title that really means nothing. There's nothing stopping Democrats from doing this right now. They can have their fake cabinet club, and they can have their fake cabinet and make public statements from their fake cabinet all they want. It appears to me they want these to be like formal, presumably paid government positions. As though the message from the last election was, yes, please, more money to government bureaucrats who do absolutely nothing if they're not causing harm. But in this op-ed in the Washington Post, this Congressman Wiley, wait, is his first name Wiley? Congressman Nickel. His first name's Wiley. He says the shadow cabinet is really in service to democracy, which of course makes no sense. They're out of power because people voted against them. Now, certainly the protection of minority rights, big fan. Love that concept. But that's not in service to democracy. That's a check against democracy and democracy's excesses, actually. It has nothing to do with promoting democracy. It's a recognition that democracy has very serious faults that we ought to mitigate against. And of course, I'm sure Democrats would have this same pro-democracy idea if, say, Trump had lost. If Trump had lost and Republicans said, we want our own cabinet to give the counterpoint on all your stupid ideas, such a proposal, I'm confident, would be undermining democracy, threat to democracy, all the taglines we've heard for the last few years. But hey, speaking of threats to democracy, somehow Senator Bob Casey in Pennsylvania is not one. And we'll get to exactly why from the Philadelphia Inquirer momentarily. But he's not one, even though it's been more than a week since his Senate race was called and he lost, but he won't concede. Now, Republican Senator-elect Dave McCormick defeated incumbent Democrat Bob Casey by about a 26,000 vote margin. It's about 0.5% in Pennsylvania. Casey's refusing to concede. Until every vote is counted, he said. Not every vote has been counted, even though the votes are counted in the areas he needs, and he's not going to win. Hence all the authoritative sources calling the election over a week ago. But in Pennsylvania, the close results trigger an automatic recount. And in theory, there's nothing necessarily wrong with recounting, assuming we're just counting the same legal ballots, right? But is that what we're doing? No, of course not. The state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania ruled before the election that all ballots lacking signatures or dates should not be included in official results, because of course they shouldn't. If you don't know when that ballot was cast, how can you count it? If there's no signature tying the voter to that ballot, how can you count it? Democratic officials in Philadelphia and surrounding Bucks Center and Montgomery counties are ignoring that order. From some reporting in Fox News here. Quote, I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country. Bucks County Commissioner Diane Ellis Marseglia, a Democrat, said Thursday as she and other Democrats voted to reject a GOP-led challenge to ballots that should be disqualified. People violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention. There's nothing more important than counting votes. Yeah, so she's just saying, I know that I'm violating the law, but I'm waiting until the court comes and forces me to stop. And they do this ostensibly because they say they're acting in good faith because they believe that rejecting someone's voting rights because of a potential clerical error would be violating their constitutional rights, as though these people don't violate your constitutional rights gleefully whenever it serves their power. In Montgomery County, from the story, continuing, in Montgomery County, for example, officials deliberated for 30 minutes over whether about 180 provisional ballots about secrecy envelopes could be counted. The Inquirer reported that several of those votes came from the same precincts, suggesting an error made by poll workers. Democratic Board Chair Neil Makija voted to accept the ballots so that voters would not be disenfranchised. But other members of the board, including one Democrat and a Republican, voted to reject the ballots on the advice of county attorneys who determined the law clearly states they should not be counted. So they know that these ballots are illegal or very likely to be illegal, and they just count them anyway. So as not to disenfranchise voters, they say, even though counting illegal votes absolutely and necessarily disenfranchises voters. It cancels out legal votes with illegal ones. That is disenfranchising the people legally entitled to vote. Bottom line, you have a legal mess brewing in Pennsylvania, but mathematically it's just not there for Casey. That's one way of looking at it. But of course, the other way is, the necessary shipments have not arrived yet. The trucks are currently being loaded. So we'll see how right I am in that prediction. Now, I mentioned the Philadelphia Inquirer. They have this hilarious piece trying to explain why what Bob Casey is doing, refusing to concede the race, denying election results, attempting to count votes that aren't legally qualified, that's way different than what Trump did regarding Pennsylvania election results in 2020. How is it different? Well, from the story, what Bob Casey is doing, he's just trying to count votes. That's all. But what Trump did was trying to exclude votes, as though trying to count votes is automatically good and trying to exclude votes is automatically bad. Now, trying to count illegal votes is bad. Trying to exclude illegal votes is good. There's another side to this assessment here. But yeah, it all boils down to it's way different because we did it this time. I'm shocked to learn that. Now, let's say that they actually pull this off. Democrats succeed in this refusal to concede in this, forever counting charade. Well, as Senator Mike Lee, Utah Republican, of course, notes on X this week, well, constitutionally, Congress retains the right to seat members. So with so many shenanigans now going on in Pennsylvania, the Republican Senate could simply refuse to seat Bob Casey if he comes back claiming that he won the election. So we'll see how this gets resolved. The numbers aren't there, so presumably this is just going to be a formality that exhausts itself over the course of a few weeks, and McCormick is going to be your senator from Pennsylvania come January. But Democrats aren't giving any indication that they are going to give up. And they seem to have piles of ballots to count, which we didn't previously know about. So, yeah, we'll see how that turns out. But, man, I mentioned this story at the start of the show. I wish I could have got to it earlier because, wow, what savagery, what insanity. But at least he wasn't driven off a Northern California cliffside. That's all a poor 67-year-old man in Seattle has to say from beyond the grave now, after his lesbian daughter murdered him with an ice axe in an apparent election night rage. Corey Burke is a 33-year-old lesbian, according to the Daily Mail. She's married to a prominent trans author and journalist. It's the two of them. Oh, no, that's not the two of them. That's just the trans wife, I guess. Corey Burke is here. She's the accused killer. Now, so this woman is married to this prominent trans author and journalist, Samantha Leigh Allen. And I'm pretty sure that's a guy presenting as a woman. So again, I don't think this is not a lesbian relationship. It's just posing as lesbian, but there is a dick involved, if my understanding is correct. Corey Burke was a training manager at Blue Origin. Blue Origin, of course, is Jeff Bezos' spacecraft company. And Burke was at her father's Seattle area home on election night. Neighbors called 911 after hearing some sort of commotion at the home, broken windows and such. And when police arrived, they discovered that Corey had murdered her father with an ice axe. She still had blood on her face when they arrived.
A woman is charged with killing her elderly father with an ice axe after an argument.
33-year-old Corey Burke is currently in the King County Jail. She's charged with murder 1. It was neighbors that called 911 around 8 in the evening on November 5th, Election Day, when a woman was seen and heard smashing windows inside her home. Arriving officers encountered 33-year-old Corey Burke, who, according to court documents, would not give officers permission to search her home. She stated nobody else was inside. Investigators say she was unable to explain the blood on her face, and officers went in anyway, discovering the body of an older white male laying face down on the carpeted floor. That man, later identified as Timothy Burke, Corey's father. Timothy Burke was found with multiple lacerations to his left side, back, head, and ears. Investigators also discovered a silver and blue ice, a pickaxe, lying on the living room floor. Corey Burke told an officer there was something important about Election Day, that when her father started arguing with her about the lights being shut off, she just freaked out.
I guess I got it wrong. I let me clarify on the couple here, because now I'm looking at it. So this is the couple. Burke is the dark-haired one. The trans author is the blonde-haired one, who I'm fairly confident is a man, but I don't know. This is a supposed lesbian relationship between these two. Now, more importantly than litigating the who has a penis here, is what exactly happened with this murder. And it's actually unclear what the exact nature of the conflict was. But, of course, we can infer, because the murder happened almost exactly the time Trump won Pennsylvania on election night, and really it was over at that point. And there was some sort of dispute about turning off the lights. Burke told detectives that she knew she could not convince her father to keep the lights off. They were arguing about turning the lights off. She went upstairs, retrieved the murder weapon. Apparently the ice axe was the finisher. She actually tripped her father, strangled him before attacking him with the ice axe. So it was lights out for Democrats on election night, and there was some dispute about lights out at her home, lights out for her sanity. She strangles her father and ice axes his skull, I believe, and commits a murder that way. She did admit to investigators that she killed him. She's charged with first-degree murder, being held on $2 million bail. She's due back in court on November 21st. She told investigators that this was an act of liberation. This killing of her father. It was an act of liberation. Now, ironically, her act of liberation will probably put her in prison for decades or potentially for life, but it is Washington State, so who knows? Maybe she'll be out this time next week. Maybe she goes to a mental institution instead, if those are still things in Washington State. So far, no comment from Corey Burke's transgender man wife, as far as I've seen. No comment from Blue Origin either. But with that, it is time for Hoax Hate.
And now, the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America Hoax Hate Crime of the Week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice?
Well, in Colorado Springs, 3 people are now indicted on federal charges for staging a hate crime hoax for the political benefit, supposedly, of a mayoral candidate in a mayoral runoff last year. 2 are in custody. 1 remains on the loose. Could possibly hoax again. Keep your eye out for a hoaxer in your community, especially if you're in Colorado. But in April 2023, these 3 people set up a wooden cross and set it on fire in front of a campaign sign for Black mayoral candidate Yemi Mobolade, who would go on to become Colorado Springs' first Black mayor. They also defaced the campaign sign with the N-word in spray paint.
New information on 3 people who have been indicted on charges related to an alleged hate crime hoax involving the election of Colorado Springs mayor. Prosecutors say Derek Bernard Jr., Ashley Danielle Blackcloud, and Deanna Crystal worked together to fake a hate crime in front of a campaign sign for Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade, who's the first black elected mayor of Colorado Springs. This was during the runoff election in 2023. Court documents say they wrote a slur on the sign and set a cross on fire in front of it. Then they allegedly recorded a video, sent it anonymously to the media. Now, prosecutors say their motivation was to make it look like someone was trying to intimidate the future mayor in hopes of gaining more votes in his favor. Mayor Mobolade himself is not involved.
Now, I don't know this mayor. I have a hard time believing that he was not involved, that these people love this mayoral candidate so much that they're going to hoax a hate crime on his behalf. Again, I don't have direct evidence of his involvement, so I don't want to make accusations I can't substantiate. It seems odd to me that people would love this particular mayoral candidate in Colorado Springs so much that they would fake this event. But that is what they're saying. In any case, these people set it up. They recorded a video of this burning cross and the spray-painted N-word on the sign, and they sent it to the media anonymously. And of course, that video later would become evidence to charge them in the scheme, so well done. Now, how did they get caught? Well, in addition to the video, they had the classic failure. They forgot to dispose of their spray paint can. Where does it say it in the story here? Yeah. The spray paint was found in the car of one of them. We've seen that many times before. Oh man, I did my hoax hate and I forgot there's the red spray paint can in the background of the photo that I sent, or in the news story where I presented myself as a victim. They did it in this case too. Forgot the spray paint can in the car. Whoopsie. In addition to that, there also is text message evidence. Now, I don't think this is an admission that they did this, but I guess as part of a case, the circumstantial evidence certainly supports. But they have text message communication between these people, one of them saying, "I'm mobilizing my squadron in defense and for the final push, Black Ops style, big brother." The charges are for maliciously conveying false information about a threat made by means of a fire, which is apparently a violation of federal law. Now, in other news, Whoopi Goldberg of The View fame, it was her birthday this week, Wednesday, November 13th, Whoopi Goldberg's birthday. And so for her show, The View, she asked a Long Island bakery to bake her some cake. And Whoopi said on the show this week that the bakery refused to bake her cake because of her politics. They hate Whoopi's virtuous progressive politics, and this claim provoked gasps from her co-hosts and from the audience.
The place that made these refused to make them for me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What? Oh,
no. Let me explain. They said that their ovens had gone down, all kinds of stuff, but folks went and got them anyway, which is why I'm not telling you who made them. But can't be because I'm a woman, but perhaps they did not like my politics. Yeah. But that's okay, because you know what? Listen. This is my mother's celebration. Yeah. Pick these up and celebrate with me and my mom.
The problem is the story is total crap. Now, even if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, this place rejected me because of my politics, but also they made the cakes that we're eating right now. Well, how did that come to be? Okay, well, Entertainment Weekly, it's Whoopi there. I'm not going to identify the bakery. Well, Entertainment Weekly did identify the bakery as Holterman's Bakery in Staten Island. The owner, Jill Holterman, told EW that her refusal of the order had nothing to do with politics. She says the bakery is having trouble with the boilers. It's a very old facility. Apparently, Whoopi asked her for this cake and this cake order on November 6th, the week prior to Whoopi's birthday. Holterman said she turned it down because she didn't want to make a commitment that she couldn't fulfill. I said to Whoopi, "I can't do it right now," she told EW. "We have so many things going on with my boiler because the building is from 1930. So when she called me, I have no idea if we could be baking everything." The owner confirmed that a woman came into the bakery on the morning of November 13th, Whoopi's birthday, and picked up 50 Charlotte, whatever, I don't even know how to pronounce this, fancy cake desserts, which she had been able to make despite the issues the bakery was experiencing. So the bakery, again, did actually make the cake for her. So if Whoopi actually believed that she was rejected by this bakery over politics, why would she accept the cake later? And if the baker did actually refuse to bake the cake over politics, why did the baker then actually bake the cake for Whoopi despite her politics later? Of course, the answer is because it's victim cred over everything, including logic and consistency. Now, this is not hoax hate, but it's framing somebody or perhaps something, and it's too hilarious for me to ignore. So I'm gonna fit it into hoax hate. In L.A., supposedly a bear had invaded luxury cars and caused great damage. When police and insurance companies investigated, they determined it was actually very clearly a person in a crappy bear costume.
A bizarre case of insurance fraud in California.
4 people are under arrest after claiming a bear damaged their luxury car. They even showed the insurance company video of said bear inside their cars, including a Rolls Royce and a Mercedes.
But wildlife experts said evidence showed it was clearly a person in a bear costume. The suspects are being charged with $140,000 in insurance fraud.
Yes, it took a wildlife expert to determine that's not actually a bear. You know, like it takes a monster expert to determine that those trick-or-treating children at your door on Halloween are not, in fact, actually goblins. The fraud was conducted by a group of people. Apparently 4 were involved at least, and it was dubbed Operation Bear Claw. And through it, they defrauded 3 insurance companies, as you heard, out of nearly $142,000. Now, just like that prior case of the hoax hate with the cross burning, the evidence for the charges in this case, in part, the videos that these people themselves created. We saw that surveillance video there. Now, I don't know if they actually own that surveillance camera or if they intentionally set up the car in front of a place where they knew there was a surveillance camera, gathering footage that they could use in support of their claim that a bear had done this to them. But whatever happened, the footage that they created ended up being, of course, part of the evidence of their own hoax hate, not hoax hate, but, insurance fraud scheme. Much like Jussie Smollett, too. Remember, Jussie Smollett had the intent of staging this whole thing and actually getting video of the Osundiros beating his ass, and that was going to be part of the evidence. Of course, it didn't come to fruition, which is a shame because we'd all love to see the footage of that actually happening. But whenever you're filming your own evidence, whenever you're filming your own hoax as evidence of something that is supposedly real, be mindful that you better do a damn good job. Hollywood quality, or else your crappy video is going to become evidence that implicates you, as it has been in these cases. But with that, we will call it a stream. I'll catch up with your super chats, and we'll call it a night over on Rumble. Lunachick says Pennsylvania didn't even finish counting legal ballots. My boyfriend was forced to fill out a provisional ballot on election day, and it still hasn't been counted. We're in a red section of a blue county. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some of that going on, and of course the call of the state for McCormick is based on how many votes are left over where. And Casey's denying that. Casey thinks that he's going to pick up a bunch of votes in places where there's no way he's going to pick up those votes unless they're from secret boxes in Democrat headquarters, but we'll find out. Anyway, Godspeed in Pennsylvania. Ninja Kitten says, Corey Burke, she prefers carpet to hardwood. I'll be here all week. That was a good one. I like that. Thoughtful. Thank you, Ninja Kitten. We're good over on Rumble. Let me find out where I left off on YouTube and Tippy. Actually, let me catch up with we're good on Odyssey, we're good on DLive. So let me find where we left off on YouTube. Dave Smith we talked about. That's right. It's always let's see. VV, we got Kaiser and Gilroy. The Democrats are a collection of we did this. Yeah, that was the one. That was the acronym. Esoterica Unbound. On the road during last week's show. No, we got that one too. Did I make a mistake here? No, I think we're all set. I think I'm just caught up, actually. So let me double check and make sure I didn't miss them and that my system isn't haywire. Stand by. And yeah, we're good. So, hey, I think that's all the chats. I think that's a show for the evening then. So with that, thank you for tuning in tonight. Thanks to all the live chatters and super chatters for making the live show a success. If you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Thanks to my guest, Jon Patton at the Gun Collective. Find all things Gun Collective at theguncollective.com. Thanks to Knuckle Hunky Buck for stopping by and helping out with Super Chats. Thanks to producer Tim for his assistance as always. If you need more to listen to, check out my website, in particular the podcast page, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. You can find not just the video show, but the audio show as well if you prefer to listen to your podcast products. Anything else show-related, mattchristiansenmedia.com is where you find it, or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. I'm back on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Have a great night and a great week until then.